This is a Film Stories original podcast.
Welcome back to the XCast, The Truth is in Here. I'm your host, Paige Schechter, and today's show is Deja Vu all over again. Because this Con Life, the Illinois-based comic, sci-fi, horror convention and festival promotion company that put on X-Fest this past March in LaSalle, Illinois, is gearing up for another great X-Files convention. X-Fest 2 will be taking, also known as X-Fest 19, will be taking place Friday, June 7th through Sunday, June 9th at the Hyatt Regency in Schaumburg, Illinois. So it's my great pleasure to welcome back this Con Life CEO, Jay Repsell, and partner JC, whom I originally spoke with for XCast prior to the first event. Hello again, Jay and JC.
Hello again.
Hey, Paige, how are you?
I'm doing great. It's already exciting to be talking about this event. Sure, particularly for the both of you, because tickets just went on sale Halloween morning, and the response was pretty immediate and impressive. Would you both agree?
Oh gosh, we've talked about this every day since they've been on sale, and I mean it just blew our expectations out of the water. I think JC would agree with me.
Yeah, it was the reaction was just, it was kind of one of those things where you just couldn't keep up with it. And I'm looking at my phone and looking at the orders coming in and where they're coming in from, and it was mind blowing that it was all happening so fast. And it was like, Jay and I were, typing things back and forth and texting. And it's like by the time you finish the text, there was already 8 more orders come in. And then, you try to text something else and here's 10 more. And it was crazy day.
I find it particularly amazing because before the first one, you both were telling me that this show was setting up to be the best one you had in your company's history, which included shows with stars of Sons of Anarchy and The Walking Dead and Supernatural, and now it's even more so, right?
Yeah, for
absolutely.
Sure. It blew away, it's our biggest first day of sales ever. I mean, it was just unbelievable, like JC said, you set these expectations, and we were kind of joking around, and we had set some watermarks, some benchmarks for ourselves privately the day before, and he had a number and I had a number in regards to what we thought it was going to be at, and it blew we were both wrong, which, in a good way.
Yeah, I laughed at his number and said, "Oh, that's pretty crazy. Let's not get nuts." And then, it ends up we got nuts, and it blew away his number even. So I was left holding the bag there, but it was a good bag to hold.
It's a good bag to hold, yes. So far, you've released the names of 7 guests, with many, many more to come, I understand, including an exclusive announcement later on in this very podcast. But first things first, let's lay out who we know so far. The great names you've announced include Mark Snow, the composer who has added so much to every single X-Files episode and movie, as well as other landmark TV and motion pictures as well. All 3 of the Lone Gunmen, Dean Haglund, Bruce Harwood, and Tom Braidwood. Susan Blomert, who just nailed the role of Phyllis Paddock in Dehan Verletz in Season 2. Brian Husky, Reggie Something from Darren Morgan's Tour de Force Season 11 episode, The Lost Art of Forehead Sweat. And Nicholas Lee Krychek, who basically wowed everyone who got to meet him at the first one. So is there a guest so far that you're particularly excited about?
Wow. I mean, I think all of them, when we decided, me and JC decided to go down to Spooky Empire and, with David and Jillian being there, and we got a table as a vendor to promote the show. So we're came up with this crazy idea, let's get some guest announcements out there. And, we decided to do 5 in 1 week, and mostly because we couldn't hold the Lone Gunmen over 3 weeks without just dying of anticipation.
Right.
But and even in between, you know, Susan and you know, I mean, just announcing those guys were just awesome too, because it's cool to see the reactions of this fan base, because they appreciate, you know, it could be somebody that's been in a couple episodes, but you get those comments like, I need him on my poster or this or that, you know, it's wild. So it's cool to see the reactions when you throw somebody out there, especially somebody like Susan, who hasn't done a show, you know, at least in a signing and photo op capacity, or, you know, Mark Snow's done some stuff in the record stores, and that's really about it. So this is a lot of rare opportunities. So I think we're both excited. I want to speak for JC here for pretty much everybody so far.
Yeah, I like I said, when you said that, when you ran through that list and, you know, asked who are you most excited about, like, I literally thought to myself, like, I couldn't pick one. I literally couldn't. I mean, it's, and all for different reasons, right? I mean, you know, the Gunmen are fan favorites, and, you know, everybody loves them. And Susan Blumart, you know, it's exciting because it's her first show ever, number one. And number two, personally for me, I'm a huge fan of The Blacklist and loved her character on there. And so that opportunity is great. Mark Snow's legendary, not just for X-Files, but again, for me, I'm a huge Smallville fan. And so he, you know, and people doing their first show, like, that's kind of what's exciting is those guys even don't know what to expect. And when they show up and see the reaction of the fans and the reaction that they get from meeting people, like, that's kind of what you look forward to almost just as much or more than, you know, the people themselves.
Well, I was going to mention this a little bit later on. The bringing in these guest stars from these landmark episodes, and they seem to enjoy it as much as we did, because, like you said, they haven't done a lot of cons. They don't get to meet a lot of X-Files fans this way. You know, Karen Conable is a great example. She went wild over everybody at the convention, and everybody went wild over having the mother from Home and the incredible Judy and Chucky from Plus One.
And Paige, I got to add real quick, though, that no star is safe with JC behind a keyboard, because we have literally plucked people out of obscurity. And, you know, some of these people have representation, but some of the way we get a hold of some of these people is quite amusing. We'd have to tell a story another time. But, you know, even the Eve twins last year, I think, was our most famous story.
Yeah, that's almost a podcast unto itself.
Oh, well, but, no, tell us the abbreviated version. I want to hear about the Eves, because they were lovely. They were lovely.
They were great, yeah. So, and I think they'd be okay with me telling the story. So, you know, some of these people have representation, but some of them we just literally start searching for using various methods. And so on the internet, somehow I stumbled upon a phone number for one of the girls, and what I thought was their phone number, I should say. And about 6 phone numbers later, I end up with, I says, you know, are you so-and-so? And they said, well, no, I'm her mother-in-law. How did you get her this number? And I was like, this is going to sound really strange. Are you sitting down? So then I had to go into my spiel about how I was an event promoter and we'd love to have them do an X-Files convention. And, you know, about a week later, I got a call back from one of the girls' husbands and had to pitch the whole thing again to him. And I think it was three weeks of pitching it. And they were like, are you serious? Is this a real thing? And, you know, once they saw the marketing materials and the artwork, they were like, okay. And they were excited about it and got to bring the family out to Chicago. And it was cool for everybody. We got to see them and hang out with them. They brought the, you know, screen used red coats, which was super cool. It was a very, very cool experience.
So who are the people at the top of your wish list? Are you just going through every season and trying to get whoever is available during that time period?
Well, we're fans, right? So, you know, me and JC, we go to a lot of cons ourselves, and we're like, who do we need on our X-Files poster? Who do we need in this book? Am I right?
Yeah, no, I was actually just going to say that. I think, you know, Paige, that's what makes, I think part of what makes the show special is that Jay and I are fans. You know, we're just as much fans as the people who are going. And so we look at things through the lens of what would we be excited to see? You know, what were our favorite episodes? What did we enjoy most about watching? You know, what were the fun things that we experienced? And so we try to translate that, you know, to everybody else. And so it's not just, a normal convention may not think like, well, Karen Carnival, like that might not be someone who's going to be, well known enough to have her come to my show. But for us, she was a must have. And we were so excited to have her and knew just from, kind of our place in the fandom that she would be super over with the crowd. And so we pursued it until it got done. And so that's kind of how we, look at things, kind of through that perspective. And so, we just kind of go through literally whether it's, season by season or, different episodes. And, we kind of made a list of, here's, people that, we think we would love to see. And, some might be, far reaching and like, I don't know if that one's, a possibility, but let's put them on the list anyway. And then there's some that we were like, okay, these are ones that we definitely want to track down and kind of put them as the priority. And so, yeah, we just kind of look at that and, whatever, look at that from that perspective and go after it.
I know after the first one, you asked on social media for recommendations on who people would want to see at the second one. And did they give you any ideas you hadn't thought of yet? And you're, oh, yes, got to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the great things about the fandom is that they're so deep as well, and that's what we love about it. So honestly, there's names, and Jay, I don't know if you feel the same way, but like, Jay is definitely a bigger X-Files fan in his lifetime than me. I'm kind of a little bit later to the party, but I'll see names and I don't recognize, and I literally have to Google them and find out who they were, because fans, are that, even that more forward in that than I am. So definitely there's names that have popped up that were like, oh yeah, that's perfect, we're on the same page. And then there's some that I'm like, I'm not even sure who that is, I have to look it up. And that's part of the fun though too.
Yeah, and if anybody listening to the show, I mean, that's coming to X-Fest or wants to or wishes to someday, I mean, we absolutely 1,000,000% take suggestions. Like, we were talking when we were down in Orlando for Spooky Empire that this is not just our show. I feel like the fans have sort of taken ownership of the show, where like everybody feels like it's our thing, and that's what's so cool about it. So, people hit us up on Twitter and they're like, what about so-and-so? Or, could you get this person? And, if it makes sense, and, we absolutely pursue it. So nothing falls on deaf ears in regards to suggestions, whether it's about, how to do something at the show or a guest suggestion.
Now, I know that the elephant in the room is always going to be, if you're talking about an X-Files convention, what about David Duchovny and Gillian Anderson?
Did you hear any stories about this past weekend in Orlando by chance?
I did, but I didn't want to steal your thunder.
No, and I don't want to run anybody down, and I think Spooky Empire is a great show, and I just think that whenever you have David and Gillian, it creates a circus because so many people are focused on meeting them, no matter what convention they're at, no matter where in the world. And I think part of X-Fest's charm is the intimacy of it and, the close-knit groups. And not to say we're like a super small convention. It's just that, we don't have as many casual people that are there to see other guests. It's all X-Files. And I think those people that are attending are happy meeting the deep cuts, and we're giving them something they want without, David and Gillian are going to cause a big distraction, and that's not taking anything away from them. I got plenty of photos with them this weekend too myself, but, I just think for X-Fest, it makes more sense for us to do sort of the deep cuts and kind of avoid that craziness, at least for the time being. Maybe someday, me and Josh, me and JC talked about maybe doing just a day with them sometime, but it's not going to be this year for sure. And I think we've done a pretty good job of being honest about that. When people are buying tickets, we say right up front, David and Gillian won't be attending. So we don't want any false expectations when people are dropping money for our show.
But like you said, if you're a fan, and I'm not only an ex-caster, I'm also a client, you want to see these people. People have been asking, like, what about writers? Is there a chance we'll get to see any of these great people who wrote these episodes that we just watch over and over and over again?
Yeah, it's definitely a possibility. Like Jay mentioned, actually, just the other day, I think somebody, we had gotten, speaking kind of a follow up to your last questions about David and Jillian, and someone had asked that same question again, and we pretty much get it daily and answer accordingly. But Jay had brought out and said, hey, unfortunately they're not going to be attending, but just about anyone else is a possibility, and that's the way that we look at it, and that's part of the fun that we have. And I think Mark Snow proves that point, that what how many people would think about the composer of the music being a guest on the show, but for us he was one of those, to use a J term, a white whale that we wanted to have, of like, this is a guy we really want, this is one we really have to chase down, because it was one that we were super excited about. So absolutely, I mean, that's kind of what we try to bring to the table is, obviously whether or not we can, get them to attend. Some are, more open to those types of, events and what we do than others. But I can definitely say without question, 100% certainty, those, efforts are being made and have been made. And, whether or not, they come to fruition is a, kind of a different story. But absolutely, it's something that we've considered, we were excited about, and are excited about the possibility for sure.
Now, you were talking about Spooky Empire, and there are also so many conventions across the country, around the world, that book familiar faces from the X-Files. Can you explain how your con is different from these pop culture conventions, and how can you still do the personal one-on-one approach when everybody is still there, for the same event? It seems like it would be harder to do that.
Yeah, and I think we've done a good job, like especially this year. I don't know if we mentioned it yet, but we went from 1 day to 3 now. Without giving away too much of the schedule, we'll probably do guests on Saturday and Sunday. So both days will be unique. There will be a couple guests that'll bleed into, the second day. For example, Nicholas Lee, he was so popular last year, and he takes a lot of time with fans. So when we were talking with him, we're like, maybe we should add him a couple days. And, I think that's still up for discussion, but I don't know if that's official yet, but I'll probably get in trouble for saying that. But there's a good chance. So, I think being able to split that over a couple days, and, everybody was at their autographing table pretty much all day. Nobody's hanging out in the green room for an hour and a half. And, I see that at other shows where you walk by a Stars table and the table's empty forever. And it's, everybody's got a schedule and stuff, but it's frustrating. And I think everybody's there to work and have fun. And it's just a fun atmosphere. I can't explain it, but we have lightning in a bottle with the show, and it's hard to explain. It's got that it factor, though, if that makes sense.
It does make sense, actually. What would you say you learned from that first one that you're incorporating into the preparations for this one, beyond, expanding it to another day?
Well, we moved to a hotel, right, JC?
Yeah, I mean, that was definitely that was definitely a huge consideration, and I think that's and just the premise of the hotel and the idea behind it really is, to your point, Paige, things that we learned. And the first time around, it was great. It was fun, it was enjoyable, it was 1 day, it was a sprint. Everybody got through things, and it was a lot of fun for people. But I think what we took away from it was an opportunity to let the show breathe a little bit, whether it's, giving people, more opportunity with the guests, or to be able to present more content to people, and giving people a possibility to get involved with more content, to be quite frank. And so not only going to the hotel, expanding to the 3 days, gives us that opportunity. And I think what, kind of stood out for me was the positive response that we got from people who attended the episode screenings we did first time around with Karen Conoval and with Doug Hutchison. The positive response we got from that was, through the roof. But there were people who were like, I really wish I could have stayed, but, I had to get back to the hotel, or, I stayed for one, but I couldn't stay for the other one because we had to leave. And, just those kinds of thoughts. And it was just like, how can we, provide an even better experience, and how can we kind of, elaborate on that a little bit. And so that was, started those wheels turning to say, hey, if we're going to do this again, really a hotel might be a better environment because everybody can be there. Everybody is more open to taking part. We can do a lot more content because there's a lot more, areas and space and things like that. So, that was really, I think, what we took away more than anything was just from the content perspective and, time to kind of let the show breathe and let people experience all that they really want to.
And I could add to that the logistics too. I mean, we had the show out by where I live, which is a rural area, which was part of the charm of the show. And, it's going to be sad to lose a little of that, but also just you got to figure we had actors landing and they come from LA. So with the time change and stuff, we're already battling that. And then we have to get them in a car and get them an hour and a half to us. There was probably 3 hours of windshield time for the actors each day, which made things difficult. And, now they're going to be in a hotel already. So we have an opportunity to do late night screenings and things like that. All kinds of cool ideas. It gives us a lot more flexibility in regards to content and programming.
So you're going to have more screenings, the same number of screenings, one a day, or are you still working that part of it out?
We're definitely still working that part out. I would say, absolutely. We're right now, I can say, without giving away any specific ones, I know for sure that we should have, double the screenings. So I would say we should have at least 4. We still have a lot of guests in discussion and a lot of things still, being worked out. So it could end up being even more than that, at least from a guest standpoint. But, we're also considering things just even like popcorn type screenings, right? Just, hey, we're going to play an episode and, if fans want to hang out in the, an area of the hotel and have some popcorn and watch with other fans, there might not be a guest there to handle that part, but things like that. So definitely we're looking at a lot of different options there.
It was definitely one of the most fun parts. I mean, so many of us were sort of watching Karen watch home because she had said she was previously afraid of it and she would cover her face, and she really watched it with us, and Doug told us some little inside things about the making of Squeeze, and we're like, now we watch that episode differently. We see what he was telling us, and it really wound up being an incredible part of the event.
Yeah, and that was, and just on a personal note, I think that was one of my biggest takeaways was I was just kind of blown away by that. I think I can speak for Jay because neither one of us, I had never in all the cons that I've been to and all the years that I've been going, I've never gone to, a film screening or, any type of other thing like that. But we were just thinking, hey, what would be kind of cool? What would be different? What would make X-Fest different than other shows? And, so we tossed out that idea and said, hey, let's try this, with 1 or 2 people and, see how it, would get over. And when I saw the response the next day, I was just blown away because you're absolutely right, Paige. I mean, the 99% of the comments we got about it, it was everybody's like, oh, that was my favorite part. That was the most fun. That was the greatest thing ever. It was crazy. And like I said, the stories that came out of that, Karen doing the voice, all of those things are just so memorable. And, what was great for her, and I think she shared the story with people who were there afterwards, that was the first time in 20 years that she had actually watched the episode. And so for seeing the episode all the way through for the first time in 20 years and being able to do that with a room full of other, X-Files fans, I mean, when or where would you ever get that opportunity again? And kind of ties back into what makes us different and what makes it memorable is the people that stayed and watched that's a memory they'll probably have, forever. And the fact that we were able to do that and provide that for people is great.
So when you look back at that first one, as X-Files fans, for each of you, what is your favorite moment from that show?
And that's tough because you're running around so much that day. I can tell you as a promoter, okay, I've been around celebrities most of my life and, in different businesses and in different environments. But, okay, I had a really cool fanboy moment. Like, I'm standing in the green room and kind of where we were instead of people coming down from their hotel rooms or what have you, these black car services dropped everybody off almost at the same time. What do we have, 2 or 3 cars, JC?
Yeah.
Yeah. So all of a sudden, like, it's just 0 to 60. And bam, I'm standing in a room with like all these people I've grown up watching on X-Files. And I'm like, oh my God, this is really cool. And, me and JC are like, hey, look at that over there. Look at him. There he is. And like, you got to turn that off really quick because you have to be professional. And, you're doing business with these people, but at the same time, you're thinking, oh my God, this is cool. So that was probably one of my favorite moments, and again, the screenings were super cool. Hearing Karen talk about, watching it on Halloween night, I believe it was when it aired, maybe. I'm not sure if that's accurate. For some reason, I don't want to say it was, but anyway, she was watching home and she had her script and the original airing. That was the first time she saw it. And that was really cool. And, it's like having DVD extras, but live. It's so cool.
Yeah, that it is really tough. I mean, there is, so many different moments there. I would say that, a couple things that stand out to me was, one, I remember I was, again, in the green room, and Brian Thompson, this was towards the end of the show. Brian was getting some coffee, and, I just went over and, asked him how it was going, and, just kind of touching base with him. And I just remember him putting his hand on my shoulder and was like, man, this is so much fun. He's like, just to be able to, he loved the idea of being there for a day. And, like, man, there's so much energy in the room, and there's so much that the fans are giving us, and we're able to give the fans because, we're here for a day and can just, go all out. And he was just like, you could just see the look on his face. He was just like, wow, this is so awesome. Like, his level of intensity and excitement was so high. And, and then for, the people who had never done a show before, like our show, she's done several others since, including Spooky, but our show was Annabeth's first show. Karen Conoval, that was her first, show. Doug Hutchison, same thing. And I think just seeing those guys and hearing their feedback and seeing how they, enjoyed that experience was just, it was great. And they all were, so complimentary and so pleased with the experience. We were just able to walk away that day as like, man, we did something special today.
Another cool story I'll share with you guys was, we're sitting there and Mitch's line was just jammed all day as per usual. And I felt bad. So I kind of sneaked behind the curtain and I'm like, hey, Mitch, do you want to take a break to get something to eat? And he's like, no, let's get through this line. And an hour later, I came back and he said the same thing. So I felt bad because the poor guy hadn't eaten. We had literally yanked him out of his hotel room. And, I had to beg him to take a break because he was having so much fun with the fans. Same thing with Leah. He was just sat there and I think we pulled him out of his panel because, he was spending so much time with people that we couldn't get him away from the table because we wanted to get through all the lines, and it was just pretty cool stories, I think.
Yeah, I think if the biggest problem you're having is someone is taking too much time talking with fans, then you're having a pretty good event.
Absolutely. And we did learn that last year that, some people take a little more time with others, so we have to plan accordingly. But that's not the worst problem in the world to have. You're absolutely right.
Oh, it meant so much to every single fan. Is there any fan who met Nick who had anything but glowing things to say about him afterward? I mean, he really made it so he was so personable. He made it so memorable.
Maybe the lady at the end of his line might be the only one, I would say, the last lady.
Well, I was actually just going to say that I think Nick was almost the perfect PR in that scenario for us because, while people are in the line, like you could tell just people were so, people were up, they were frustrated and, some people were upset having to be in line that long. But as soon as they got to Nick's table and they walked away, they looked like they were on cloud nine and they completely had forgotten how long they waited in line or, how somebody, got in line in front of them or whatever the case may be. He erased like 99% of that because of how genuine and how interesting and how fun he was and how much he gave to every single one of those people that day. Like he just, it really erased some of that displeasure in that scenario. But like I said, if everybody walked away from it that they were so happy and so excited to have experienced that, then we did our job.
Okay, so let's go back to talking about the one coming up, and you're going to have panels again, right, with combinations of the actors talking, and you're going to have, I guess you're talking about some other elements that aren't ready yet to be officially discussed. But what about like vendors? I know that's something you're seriously considering.
Yeah, we used to use the excuse that we didn't have room. But we can't really use that excuse anymore because let me just say our hotel is gorgeous too. If you've never seen this hotel, just look it up online. JC and I went to another convention there and we're like, this place is perfect. And we actually just fell in love with the building and the way it is and the intimacy of it. Like when I say it's bigger, I mean there's more meeting space there for the panels and stuff like that. But as far as the intimacy of the show, I don't think that's going to be taken away at all. You eat with the fans right in the open area. You check in with the fans, and it's going to be a really cool thing. But yeah, it's given us a lot more flexibility in terms of what we can do and can't do. After parties, and like you said, there's a couple other things we're talking about that are, aren't official yet. We don't really want to put the cart before the horse on it, but there's going to be so much programming and so much to do that I think after 3 days, people are going to be wishing it was 4. So.
They probably will, or we probably will, I should say. Okay, so let's talk about the different packages you're offering, because there are some new options this year. Do you want to run all those down for the listeners?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, the main difference that we, kind of did this year over last year, we have our platinum VIP packages, our gold VIP packages that are similar to last year. And what we added were some different packages that included the hotel nights. So we've been to some shows in the past that, if you have they have a special VIP package that included a hotel room at the event hotel. And we just thought that was really cool. That was a really good idea. And it was a way for, fans to guarantee that spot and be able to, get that space at the event hotel while it's there and get that guaranteed. So, we added those in, and those packages come with the Friday night and the Saturday night stay included. By the time people listen to this, they might be sold out by then, but that's kind of the main difference there. And then we also, this year we'd had the 1 day general admission, and what we decided to do this year was just go with a full weekend general admission pass. For $75 you have access to the show all weekend, and that will kind of help us with that side of it. So we mixed it up a little bit and added a couple of packages in there, but we tried to keep it affordable for everybody and keep the goodies special. And everybody seemed to be, when we rolled it out, everybody seemed to be pretty happy with, everything there. So we're excited about it.
Right. Now, for the people who didn't know about the first one or didn't go to the first one, the Platinum package there's the line skip, there's guaranteed seating at these events like screenings and the parties. There's five photos, 5 autographs, and then if you get with the room, you get an additional one. Is that correct?
Yep. So there, the autographs and the photo ops that are included in there. That's another thing that we've kind of enjoyed at other shows is when people buy those VIP packages to include some of that with them. And so the way that it works is that with the VIP packages, they come with vouchers for autographs and photo ops. So people just, go up to the table of whatever guests they want. And if they want to use all 5 of their vouchers on Mark Snow, they can totally do that. Or if they want to use them all on Dean Haglund, go right ahead. That's, completely, you have complete 100% control of that. You decide who you want to use them on and when you want to do it. And the individual photo ops are the same way. We have, in my opinion, the best photo op company in the business, Wolf Studios Photography, doing our event again this year. And, kind of the same rule of thumb with them. You have your individual photo op vouchers that are included in the package. And when the schedule comes out, if you want to get a Brian Husky photo op and Mark Snow photo op. You line up in the line when it's time for their photo ops to be done. You hand the voucher to Wolf Studios, and they'll do their work for you. So very much the same as this year as we work on the other thing that's a little bit different from our show is autographs, photos, table selfies, combo tickets. All of those things are either pre-purchased online or they'll be purchased on show days at our sales table. But we do not do any exchange of money or funds at the guest table. It's a bit smoother process. It gets people through the lines in an easier fashion. And to be honest, a lot of the feedback that we've gotten from celebrities that we work with is sometimes it's a little uncomfortable. When somebody's getting money out at the table and they kind of, feel uncomfortable with that. And so we kind of take all of that away, and, people just show up at their table, put their voucher down, and, get what they need to get. So we try to make it as simple as possible, but also as smooth as possible as well.
Okay, and also I don't want to neglect to mention like the wonderful poster and the exclusive shirt and the drawstring bag, all included in platinum, also included in gold, which I think gold is you get 3 vouchers for photo ops and 3 for autographs.
Yep, 3 and 3 for the gold, and the gold hotel was 4 and 4. And yeah, we had the same. The prints were also a very, very popular item last year, and they were exclusive to the package. So depending on which package you got, they were exclusive there. So they're a very limited number, and only so many out in existence. And so we're doing the same thing this year with JJ Lendl and Matthew Dow Smith doing event exclusive prints for us. And we're excited about it, and we had great feedback from last year. The art was fantastic, and we're happy to have them on board and doing a new poster for us this year.
Okay, and then beyond that, not just for the people who have general admission, but for people who want more than what their vouchers are, there's autograph tickets and selfie tickets and combos of both of those things, as well as the professional photo ops, and then Wolf Studios Photography doing combination photos like the Lone Gunman all together and the whole cast, and those are always very popular.
Yeah, Paige, I just want to throw in there too that there's a lot of hullabaloo about the VIP packages. Everybody wants those, and they're worried about them selling out. And by the time you hear this, they may all be sold out. I'm not sure. But you can 1,000,000% come to the show with a VI or with a general admission ticket, buy what you want a la carte, and still have a good time. The VIP packages are convenient. They're paying for some privileges and stuff, but don't think you can't come to the show with a general admission pass and have a great time, because you absolutely 100% can. And, the lines move really fast and stuff like that. I know some people went to their first convention recently and had kind of a bad experience, but like JC said, Wolf has their act together. I mean, you could literally do every photo op all day long if you want to and still get all your autographs in. I mean, it's a very efficient process.
Excellent. So when do you think you'll be seeing the schedules for each day? Is this going to be way at the end after all your names are announced, or is the schedule going to come out sooner?
Yeah, it'll probably be towards the, I'm guessing we typically will do a schedule, probably about 6 weeks, I would say 4 to 6 weeks probably prior to the show, depending on, guest schedules and obviously, working with Wolf Studios to coordinate the photo op times and panel schedules. Typically for a convention, it's usually, in that, some people do it, a week or 2 before the show. I think our goal would be a little bit earlier than that, but, definitely I wouldn't expect to see a schedule until, kind of around that time in the, late April, mid-April, to early May timeframe.
So you're going to be trying to do names of guests once a week?
Well, if we did once a week, we'd, we would really be, we'd be really going crazy there. We'd end up with, we got 8 months left. We'd have, 50 guests by then.
That sounds good. What's wrong with
that? Easy now.
I would say, Jay and I have kind of talked about this a little bit. I would say, right now as we head into the holiday season, we're not, really sure. But I would say between guest announcements and other types of announcements that we would have, I would say probably we'd be looking at, maybe every 2 weeks or so. I don't know. I don't think we would probably do every week, but at least a couple times a month, there will be, whether it's new guest announcements, guests of a announcement of a new photo op, or
panel.
a screening. Here's a screening announcement, a panel announcement, different things like that. So there'll definitely be news continuing, and that's one of the things that I would say, kind of going back to one of the earlier conversations about what have we learned, from our very first show till now. That was one of the first things that I think we took away was, our very first show, we, just put all the announcements out, and we were just so excited to get every name and every photo op and everything out right away. And then what happened was, we had so much time with, not a lot of announcements left. And, it was kind of like, it was a little bit anticlimactic at times. And so what we decided to, in a learning experience from that was, hey, we got to, kind of spread things out a little bit and keep the excitement going. So, we want to, have announcements going up until, the May or maybe even right before the show type time frame. So we're going to spread things out a little bit to keep people, coming back for more and keep people, watching the website and watching the social media and staying involved. And, you never know when you'll be surprised with something new.
Right.
We'll be giving some stuff away too. We do the Fan Fridays. When we get a little closer where people like and share our posts and announcements and stuff, they can win free passes. And I think we talked about even giving away some photo ops and autographs this year where we got a lot of time. So we got to get generous and, be creative with keeping everybody engaged.
That's awesome. And one of the ways to do that is we're about to announce the exclusive XCast guest. But before we do that, let me ask you one more question. And are you already thinking into the future beyond XFest 19? Because, well, one of the questions is, it doesn't look like we're going to be getting another X-Files revival anytime soon, and like X-Files News pared down its coverage, and sort of what are your expectations for the long run and continuation of this kind of event?
Well, tell the truth, JC. We had a conversation about it today.
We literally, that's why I laughed. We literally, I would say, not even 6 hours ago, we had this exact conversation. So, Paige, I don't know if you have these phones bugged, or you like Apple, you're listening to everything series, I don't know, but
we can say two things about it. Number one, we have to plan it early because these venues book early because of weddings and things like that. So it's something we have to decide sooner rather than later. And number two, based upon ticket sales, the interest is definitely there. The passion is definitely there. So, it's too early to say for sure, but things are looking really good.
Yeah, and we'll definitely keep, we're keeping that option open. And, like this hotel is a new experience for us. And obviously, them working with us for the first time as well. And, that'll kind of play a part in things too. So I would say, we definitely have our minds open, and we're looking and obviously just recently discussing possibilities. So, we'll see in the long run, but we're definitely it's under consideration and something we're really looking at.
Excellent. Okay, it's time. Let's for the XCast exclusive of guest announcement for XFest 19.
I'll let you handle this one, JC. You did the heavy lifting on this one.
Yeah. So, this was one of those ones that, Jay had talked about, where do you find people? And it wasn't easy, but we got it done. But, Paige, hopefully you'll be excited about this one. Fingers crossed. But, as an exclusive here for XCast, the announcement that we'll be making, for a guest upcoming, for XFest 2 is making her first ever convention appearance, first ever Fan Fest appearance. Has never happened before, so it's a first time ever. Mrs. Tina Mulder, Rebecca Tulin, will be attending her first show ever with us, and we're super excited to have her.
That is incredible. Minds are going to explode. Mine is already gone. That is
awesome. I'm glad
Yes.
you're excited.
Great get. Okay, so before we board a UFO on out of here, why don't you tell everybody where they can find you on social media and how to get tickets to this event?
Yep, you can follow us at Twitter at XFestCon. Our Facebook is also very busy, facebook.com/thisconlife. And you can follow us on the web, thisconlife.com and thex-fest.com. Ticket links are up and available there. Also links to book the hotel, and we update social media very, very regularly. So stay tuned, follow us there, and you'll be able to see all the latest news and views.
That is awesome. Thank you both so very much for being with me today.
Well, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Paige. Appreciate it. Look forward to seeing you in June.
I can't wait. So in the meantime, I'll keep doing my X-Files rewatch blog with my sister called Sibling Cinema at Blogger. We're also found with that moniker on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Tumblr, and Pinterest. Thanks so much for tuning in. Keep your eyes peeled for more on X-Fest 2 or X-Fest 19. And remember, as always, trust no one.
The X-Cast, an X-Files podcast, is produced and presented by Tony Black, alongside a dedicated group of podcasters and X-Files fans. You can find us on Twitter at The X-Cast, and on Facebook if you type in The X-Cast, or at our group X-Files Basement, an X-Cast podcast fan group, where you can continue the discussion about all things Mulder and Scully. If you want to support the X-Cast further, you can now subscribe and become a patron of the show on Patreon. On Google, just type patreon.com/The X-Cast. That's Patreon. You'll see all of our tiers, subscription options and perks, which include early access to episodes, bonus content such as commentaries on X-Files episodes, access to a patron chat zone, and even appearing on one of our patron roundtable discussions. We would appreciate any support you can give the show, so just go to patreon.com/The X-Cast to find out more. Our title music is provided courtesy of Will A, who you can find on Twitter at IamWillAYE.